Welcome back. The hashtag is NewsGang. Now, as everybody is talking, everybody's urging for restraint, everybody's calling for calm, de-escalating the situation. So far, there doesn't seem to be much response from either side. Sam, everyone's talking. I mean, if it's not the LSK, it's the diplomatic corps, it is the religious leaders from all faiths. It is everybody, including, media reports of, foreign leaders trying to mediate the situation. But yet, everybody remains hardlined in their stances.
What is worrying is that it is clear, whether you agree or you don't, you support Mandamon or you don't, it is having an impact on this country. It is having an impact on the economy. It is having an impact on children who are supposed to be in school. This is their best time to study. Their brains are still young and naive. Or is it innocent? Now they are starting to learn what Mandamano means. They're starting to see wrong images on screens. They're starting to see their fellow young children in school being tear-gassed, crying, some fainting. They have seen all that. The politicians, everyone is speaking to them. Even them, they're also speaking. So who's listening? And you listen to leadership. I was listening to Archbishop of Nyeri on Sunday Live just the other day. And he was talking of what leadership is. And I think this has been one of the most shared quote of him. And may I quote, hoping Please. That I don't get it wrong.
Please.
And he said that leadership is supposed to be human, humane, supposed to be empathetic, supposed to be compassionate. But he said that the current leader is rough, insultive, imposing, and arrogant. And I think that's the leadership we have, not just those in government, but also those in opposition. And I listened to some of them. They were speaking somewhere, I think it was yesterday. And they're speaking at the Archbishop, telling him that we know you have a relationship with the former president. Go and tell him this. And I wondered, what exactly is that? Because if we disparage every other leader, every other voice in this country, what are you going to listen to? If we don't respect certain voices, that they are the ones that call us back to our conscience, if you ask me, I would say that the religious, those leading, whether it's the different faiths, they are sort of the conscience of our country. So when they speak, we listen. If we don't listen and speak back at them, so what are we doing? Where are we headed? Let's listen to the Bishop of Ngong, John Obala, speaking.
We are particularly appalled by unbecoming, insulting, and inciting statements made by leaders. This is causing confusion among the population regarding the direction the country is taking.
And he speaks of that confusion. And this is it. I mean, people that run businesses in town, they want to report to work to sell their wares. If they can't, what are they supposed to do? They cannot arrest anybody.
When you speak of listening and receiving feedback, it would seem in this country, if somebody says something you don't like or you don't agree, we do that thing that we do so well, which is stereotype you and put you into a box, because that's the only way we know how to deal with you. So we either use the ethnic or the political affiliation perceived. So now we're turning it on the religious leaders, saying, oh, by the way, you are, former president's friend, he's your parishioner. When the economists speak, they're Azimio. When media speaks, they're Azimio. When Kenyans speak, and we had the public participation that was really robust, I keep saying, of any other finance bill that I have had, the pleasure of covering in my career or even seeing in my lifetime, Kenyans really ventilated on this, gave their views in simple ways, in complex ways, giving alternative solutions. But anyone who says something that anybody doesn't like, and by the way, this goes for both sides, huh? If you say something on this end, you are Azimio. If you say something on the other end, you must be Kenya Kwanza. And surely our minds are made better than this. It is possible for you to hold a different view. But if we keep stooping lower and lower and lower from professionals and now religious leaders, that's really frightening in this country. And by the way, we've done it even with judges. Huh? And this is historical in this country. We've seen elected leaders single out judges, typecast them as, from their ethnicity, say they are biased to one side. It's a very sad trend in this country, and the bishop is right. We're not listening.
And before Linus comes in, it's a simple pulpit, Yvonne. When it works in your favor, it's good. Yeah. Because we've spoken about this here several times on the show about how the pulpit is almost being misused by political leaders. When they stand up there and you have a crowd of people who have come there because they're looking for hope. They've come there to listen to the preaching. But then there you are standing and spewing politics. Yeah? And some of those people are not there to listen to that, and you're alienating the people who've come there for a different reason, or those who don't support you. And we've spoken about here again and again about how the pulpit is being misused. But now, it's the other way around. The fact that now someone is calling out and then you're going back at them because of calling out. And it's what you're talking about, Yvonne. We need to be smarter than this. We need to have some maturity in terms of how we look at people and what they say and what they represent when they speak. Because when you have someone like Archbishop Muheri of the Nyeri Diocese speak, he speaks from a position that not many people have. Yeah. He's the Archbishop of Nyeri Diocese. He speaks from experience, because you don't get to that position easy too. Yeah, he represents the Catholic Church, and I think we need to respect that when we listen to such people speaking, no matter which political affiliation you're on, or no matter how painful what he or others say in relation to the situation that you're facing, Yvonne.
Yeah, Linus, you've talked so much about decorum in this country and our words and how that goes.
And I was actually just looking at the national values and principles of governance again in the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And we are back to where we've normally been, which is we have good books, we have a good constitution. It sounds very, very good. Principles like patriotism, national unity, sharing, and devolution of power, the rule of law, democracy, participation of the people, all very good on paper. But let's admit, we are having a problem of stunted growth, especially politically. And I think even our neighbors get shocked. They can't quite figure out what is that. Because when we step out, and last week I was out, and Kenyans are regarded so well that they are hardworking, very reliable, and all that. The employability of a Kenyan out there is really, really high, especially the professionals with qualifications, because people out there regard our education system, our individual work ethic as really, really attractive. But then there's this contrasting story of our politics and the failure to reach somewhere, have an identity in terms of who we are, how we do things. And we're starting to sense a mediation fatigue. I know last week the foreign diplomats released a statement. And one of the opposition leaders said, no, you've been quiet for the whole week. I mean, how long shall we be babysat? Smith Hempston, the American ambassador, very famous Nyama Choma ambassador, was in this town and was very instrumental in helping the country achieve the repeal of Section 2A that then returned Kenya back to multi-party politics. And those were delicate times, difficult times, complex things like the Cold War was still on. That was the era of the African strongman. We had presidents who were like kings. Our President Moi was here in the neighborhood. Museveni has always been there. And then we go to DRC. There was Mobutu Sese Seko, Habyarimana in Rwanda. These were people who actually took power as if they were kings. And the foreign diplomats in this city helped a great deal in supporting the civil society and the political opposition which was then unregistered, to push for reforms. That was 1990. How many years ago? Some 1990 to date.
33.
How old is that 33-year-old person? You know, you imagine that person still coming back to you and saying, give me my bottle, you know? And that's where we are, because we should start finding it embarrassing that we actually expect statements from foreign diplomats in Nairobi. Is that what they do in Rwanda, which is doing quite well in the economy and political development? Is that what they do in Tanzania? And I think there was a jibe the other day about neighbors that are unstable. Wanaozozana. And when that happens, wawekezaji go to other places. We've been eating away at our values, because when you look at our leaders, and some, you're very right in terms of what message are we giving our youth. It's so dreadful to see people with very high offices speaking the way they speak. So much so that we even have a situation where a foreign dignitary came here and refused to meet a senior cabinet secretary because to them and to environments where values count, character matters, character is part of leadership, some of these things cannot be associated with, with leadership. And I think when the Archbishop of Nyeri and the entire team of the KCCB talk of expanding the national dialogue to include others, I think there is some justification in that, so that you expand the whole debate to include things that are not that do not have to be written to the constitution. Foreigners helped us in achieving this. There was Kofi Annan, Kriegler from South Africa. Who else? You can count so many people that helped us come up with this constitution of Kenya 2010, and indeed the reforms that we're yet to implement. But there are softer issues, and the soft issues are about character, are about values. How should leaders behave to each other? How should they behave when they are talking to the public? I will not be surprised if our leaders actually, and it has started, when a foreign dignitary refuses to meet a cabinet secretary, it means there is a problem. And a serious one. There are basic things like protocols. I wouldn't be surprised if we start doing certain things out there that we think are uniquely Kenyan, but they're just bad manners, because we are walking away from the unwritten soft side of things, which is about values, ethics, character. Those things count.
They do. They do matter. And that is the message that the young children are getting. I mean, Sam?
Yeah, it is that unfortunate. I was just looking at a statement that was released by the president on the 2nd of April. This is a time, at the time that the first wave of protests for this year was going on. And he said in paragraph 8 that in times like this, it is not about who is right or who is wrong. Like Winston Churchill said, I dare say that, quote, courage is what it takes to stand up and speak, but it is also what it takes to sit down and listen. End of quote. I was quoting the president. And of course, so many calls for a dialogue. The Law Society of Kenya wants to donate its team of expert mediators. The Catholic bishops are ready. The diplomats
is ready,
are ready. NAMLEF is ready. Are you ready? Yeah, so with all these offers, I don't think they are wrong, especially if to take a look at those voices, including the diplomats. There must be something that they know these are internal affairs, yes, but there is nothing so big for a country to sit together at a table and discuss. However illogical the claims or the asks, if that is English, may be, I'm sure there must be some common ground, which I think is the responsibility of the leadership of the country. I remember the other time when we were having this conversation, and we said, I think it was in some sense, that I wrote, that if it was going to be a solution birthed through Parliament, it was going to rest on the shoulders of the minority leaders in the Senate and the National Assembly, majority leaders at both houses of parliament. And still that is the case, because when you look at parliament today, I'm not sure what they speak, not on the floor of the house, but what they speak outside here. I'm not sure you get the confidence that you can actually get a solution
in there,
of resolving whatever concerns or whatever issues there may be. So I think it's a really serious problem of leadership that we have, and I don't know who can resolve this. With all these mediation offers, it's time for a decision to be taken.
And I'm just wondering, isn't it tiring for both sides? I say this because, for instance, in the government side, the president has been launching projects the past few days. He was in Kericho, he was in Isiolo. Isiolo, there was a road. In Kericho, I think it was it a water project?
Yes.
But then now he has to also speak about this, yeah? He's here, we're launching a project, we're doing this, we're doing that, but he has to speak about the maandamano and what they're going to do. And at the same for the opposition, because they have to plan who will travel where, what will we do, magari yameharibiwa, nini, you know. So there's just so much kusumbuka that I'm talking.
It must be tiring.
Yeah, you know.
Including decisions on which security officers to withdraw from whom.
and look, it's no longer really about the sides, side A and side B. This is one coin of a rotten political culture, both ends. A country ideally ought to have alternatives. You know, you can actually think of, if something happened this side, you know, there's a competition of ideas. What do we have? Do we really have a competition of ideas? We have a rotten political culture. We have rotten institutions when it comes to how we generate our leadership. Let's not forget we sat here last year during in the run-up to the election, and one of the things we did here was to go through a list of 241 candidates for office who the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Office said,
red flag.
Yeah, they are unfit for public office.
Red card, yes.
What did the country do? Pack all elective officers with the entire list, basically. Now, trash in, trash out. And I think we are doing a lot of the harvesting of the results of that. Because ideally, these are the people who should give us solutions. What are they? They're actually just can be compared to the rioters themselves that throw stones, except that they use SUVs. And because they are not capable of offering alternatives. And there's one thing that it's doing, and this really should worry us a lot, our competitiveness as a country.
Yeah.
We are no longer really that attractive business destination. There are two projects, grand projects that, for example, have been happening in the region. Rwanda is putting up a very modern airport. Very modern airport. You know, in our heads here in Kenya, we keep calling ourselves a hub. You know, but you have to be a hub physically in terms of the enabling infrastructure. It's not supposed to be in your head. It's not what you think.
Yeah.
You are, and that's what we do in Kenya. You know, we are the hub. But compare, and if this is how we're going to go, compare JKIA with the new airports that are coming up. Have you been to the new wing of Bole International Airport in Addis? In Addis. Is our airline as healthy as those around the region? But you know, we can't do this if both government and opposition are spending time in an endless electioneering, because that's what we are doing. Look at any event, whether it's an opposition event or a government event, doesn't it look like a campaign rally?
With both sides speaking from on top of a car or through the sunroof, addressing supporters, one side constantly reminding us that they won the election, the other side constantly asking for that election to be revisited in one way or another, open the servers or that sort of thing. We're still stuck there, and that is why we still haven't even resolved the issue of the IEBC. That selection panel that is sitting somewhere, twiddling their thumbs, wondering, so what do we do next? You have every election cycle, we are revamping our electoral management bodies. So, I mean, Sam, the bipartisan talks that were supposed to, take place have stalled. And even those talks, there's now calls to expand them because, again, like we've said, if this is the conduct of both sides of the political divide that we see, are we then going to trust them once again to sit at that table and find solutions that are really, personal to either of them? And here we are. We have completely refused to move from 2022. What's it going to take? Maybe starting to form the IEBC early enough, but then again, we're going to make the same mistakes that we have time and again. Leave that matter pending, leave those officers pending until it is way too late. They come in when there's very little time. And here we are again, Sam. The IEBC, the commission, right now there's not a single commissioner in office.
Right. There's a time, we're still here. In this studio, and we were talking about the bipartisan talks, the talks before the talks, remember?
Yeah.
And Linus was keen to tell us that nothing has started yet. It will take time, there'll be trade-off before they can begin. And indeed, I don't know where we are now. Because really, I remember that time, the Azimio side was saying that within 90 days we want an outcome. In fact, the earlier call was that within 30 days we want some direction. Now that is already forgotten and no one is committed to the bipartisan talks. Of course, Azimio says that they blame their Kenya Kwanza counterparts because they were not very committed to the talks. They could not agree on the agenda because initially William Ruto, the president, wrote and said that as of this question of IEBC, then a bipartisan team can go ahead and midwife it and seek a solution out of it. But he also said that he himself had raised certain issues about members of cabinet appearing before the House, having an office of the opposition. But that statement was so cleverly done, it was not sort of suggesting an agenda for the bipartisan talks. He was saying that he himself has written a memorandum to the two houses of parliament on what he thinks can be done to the constitution. So even the route of bipartisan talks can be used to raise the question of IEBC and probably other matters that may come. But you found the Kenya Kwanza team and the Azimio side not agreeing on what exactly would be done at that level. Just this week, I spoke to one of the panelists, or one of the leaders from Azimio side, and they told me that they took their team A to the bipartisan talks, but the Kenya Kwanza team sent them the team D to the bipartisan talks.
Not even B.
D.
D.
Don't forget that they are all members of parliament. They're either senators or members of the national
elected.
So they're their colleagues. They were elected through the same process, either by election, by universal suffrage, or election by nomination. So they are members of parliament. But already there's that perception based on the rank of the leaders that have been proposed. So it shows you that there's a lot of mistrust, suspicion that is going on in the political class. And that's why even when a solution is being sought, you're wondering, where do you process that solution? Who is even there to talk about it? You ask the question of the independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, IEBC. Nobody has a direction on what should happen. But of course, the Kenya Kwanza team has said, we never stopped the selection process that was led by Nelson Makanda as the chairperson. So they should go ahead and deal with it. But when you look at all these issues, then you get confused because do you want to go ahead and implement the recruitment process in an already divisive process? To what end? How do you resolve these issues? Then again, you're wondering, the Kenya Kwanza side is feeling, the side of Azimio is using this as a bargaining chip because were they to commit themselves to the bipartisan talks and resolve the IEBC issue, then IEBC is out of the way. It does not become a bargaining chip or an opportunity to maneuver through the political whatever. And there are a lot of things that are expected to happen with IEBC before 2027. So really, that mistrust, that suspicion is not helping this country. And I don't know who will save us.
That is a good place to start to wind up. I want to read some feedback here. Stephen Masao says, great perspectives, but only values and principles will remain in each and every one of us. What does one believe in? What does one value in public and private life? What principles guide one to act? Is it just political affiliation or dear service to humanity? Is it respect, humility, truth, patience, understanding, decorum, public participation, Article 10, This is where our country is now. Which way forward? The leadership to move the country forward positively is really needed, especially from the holders of key government offices. Only this will guide the next possible steps. God help us.
God help us. Tufunge kazi.
God help us all indeed. Thanks for watching the show today and every day. The hashtag is NewsGang. Keep the conversation going. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good night and God bless us all.